I have an Uncle Darrell who was a tail gunner in B-25s during the Second World War, and he flew 32 combat missions, crashed 5 times, so he's quit. He retired from the Air Force. Uncle John, he was in training to fly B-25s, and he never got over there because he came in at the tail end of the war. I know that I had Uncle Bobby was with Patton, and he was killed in Germany. In fact, he was killed after the armistice. He was riding, we got a letter from him, and he said that he was looking forward to coming home and having ice cream, and then 3 days after that, he was riding on a tank coming back, and a sniper shot him off the tank, and they hadn't heard that the war had been over. But I have one ancestor that was from Farquhar County, Virginia, that fought in the Revolutionary War, and he was a corporal in the Virginia Volunteers. So we can go back that far. So there's always been one in every war. I haven't really spotted the one that's been in the wars in between. And my dad was in the National Guard, and then he thought he was going to go into cavalry, but actually the cavalry turned into the tank corps. So he was in the tank corps in Missouri in the First World War in that era. In the Depression, we were on a farm, and my dad, and I can remember the storm cellar, and I can remember that there wasn't much that we really went without. We didn't have money to buy a lot of things, but we always had food, and I always remember my dad telling me that whenever we needed something, they would take in a smoked ham to St. Joe, and they could trade for a pair of shoes, but there was no money, but we didn't. We really didn't have it as bad as a lot of people in Depression, mainly because we were on the farm.
My earliest memories of growing up here are I really loved that boarding house next door, and my grandmother I just loved her. She was a wonderful woman. She made all my clothes. She was a beautiful seamstress. And my early years here were really a lot of fun. I mean, we just made our fun. There's an old rock up the hill called Sliding Rock. We used to go up there all the time and slide down that rock. And we could be gone for the whole day, and my mother wasn't that worried. Now I would be worried if I had children that were gone the whole day. But we really had a good time, and we'd go over to the park, and at that time they had a skating rink here in Roslyn. And that was a lot of fun. We had skating, and there was a movie theater here, but we had to be home by 9 o'clock no matter what, because we had a 9 o'clock whistle here, and that was our curfew. And if you were caught on the street, after 9, the police would bring you home. That's the way it was.
I was going to school in my early years, or during the war years, and it was not too enjoyable to remember those. There was all of us kids. I can remember the air raid drills. I can remember, having to pull the shades down at night, and you had the civil defense guys out to make sure you weren't any lights showing. And so in those days, it was kind of different. But then as it loosened up after the war, it was really a kind of a different deal. And I kind of grew up in a fun time in the 50s. Everybody was happy the war was over, and they enjoyed themselves.
Well, when I was 13, I went to Europe with my grandparents and my mom and my brother. And we went to Croatia, and we spent 6 months there, and we went over on the Queen Elizabeth. And it was marvelous. I have wonderful recollections of that.
Our rival was Puyallup, and that's who we had Thanksgiving ball game with. We always got beat by every team because we were the smallest team in the league, but it was a lot of fun anyway. I played center until I got my arm broke, and I'm telling you, I got creamed all the time. But the tackles and the guards were all my buddies, so they took care of whoever creamed me.
I was a dancer. I loved my dancing. That was my passion. I really loved to dance, and my mother enrolled me in dance class when I was 5. And I danced all through my early years, and the last 2 years of high school, I was the dance teacher here in Roslyn.
We listened to the radio every night, And it was always, that was the only way, the only communication. You'd huddle around the radio and you'd listen to Let's Pretend and all of those, The Shadow and all of those type of programs. And your imagination had to be excellent in those days. It was so different when I was a kid. All of the military were our heroes, because that's all we ever saw on the screen. And there used to be the RKO newsreels that came on.
On December 7th, 1941, Japan, like its infamous Axis partners, struck first and declared war afterward.
All of my, the people that I truly loved were dancers. Well, Gene Kelly, Singing in the Rain I saw that on the ship, by the way, on the Queen Elizabeth. And I'll remember that movie all my life because he was such a good tap dancer, and I love tap dancing.
But then we did have some movie heroes, not like they have now. You know, we had John Wayne and those type, and we had the Lone Ranger, and we always had those serials going, and they were always the white hat good guys, you know.
In those days, smoking was a no-no for a girl. Drinking was a no-no for a girl, and so was sex. Everything was, I mean, you know, we had one girl in our class that had some beer one time, and she was considered just an outcast.
It was so much easier for us than it is for our grandkids. They got more challenges than we ever thought about.